Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is release weekly videos teaching people how to produce music on their iOS device. And in today's video, we're going to be showing you a couple of different tips and tricks to help you add that extra little bit of ear candy to your songs, right after this. And remember folks, if you do enjoy this content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave your tips and tricks in the comments below. Now, what we call ear candy in a song is those extra little details and nuances used to spice it up and keep the listener interested. And we actually created a similar video to this one a couple years back called How to Add Texture to Your Songs that will complement this video nicely, so definitely make sure to check out that one as well. Now, oftentimes newer producers aren't yet familiar with some of these techniques and end up wondering why their tracks sound a little bit flat or not quite as good as the ones on the radio. The plan today is to go through a bunch of different tracks to demonstrate that these various tips and techniques are actually pretty universal and work in a wide variety of different genres. Plus, many of those ear candy sounds that you'll hear today are available in our completely free FX Toolkit pack that you can download right now at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And finally, though we will be working with Cubasis 3 in today's video, these tips and techniques can be applied to virtually any DAW on any platform. Alright, and now with that intro aside, let's hop right into Cubasis 3 and start trying to add ear candy to these tracks. Alright, now during the course of this video, you may notice that most of my FX tracks are located towards the bottom of the project. And that's because I typically don't start adding these type of effects until I have a pretty solid arrangement completed. Now, as always, if you do have any questions, definitely make sure to leave those in the comments below. Alright, now let's go ahead and get to our very first technique, which is going to be filter automation. Now, like the rest of the techniques that we're going to go through in this video, I will be demonstrating it on multiple projects. So first up, we have our synthwave project here. And if we zip that up a little bit, you can kind of see the whole project. So we have our drums here at the top, our FX, bass, pianos, chords, leads, and pretty much everything is nice and color-coded here. So what we're going to take a look at here is our chord bus, and we're going to take a look at our filter. And you'll notice that we are at the beginning of the song, so this filter is going to be all the way to the left. So now let's start to see how we can build energy by starting the filter all the way to the left, and then as the song progresses, moving it all the way to the right. Alright, there you go. Now, as you can see, when you start from the very beginning, you start to build energy because you're starting from a very quiet place and then going to a very loud place. And then you can actually repeat this process throughout different parts of the song. Alright, and now let's take a look at this filtering automation technique once again. Here we have a trap metal track. And I do have the guitars filtering in the very beginning of the song as well. As we can see inside of our guitar group here, we have the filter. And just like before, that is going to start from the left and then move to the right. So let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, very cool. So you can see that this type of effect can really come in handy in multiple genres, because the whole point of it is to build energy. And to do that, you start with quieter sounds, and then build up to louder and louder sounds. And of course, you can then reverse this type of effect where you're starting out very loud, and then getting very quiet. Something like that is typically used during a drop or an outro. But what's really cool is combining this technique with our next one, which is going to be using risers and downlifters. And once again, this technique can be applied to a variety of different genres, as you'll see here. So if we zoom in a little bit, and scroll down, we can see where all of our effects are. And that's going to be everything in yellow here. And you can see there's a number of different risers and downlifters here. Now there's a couple of different risers that I use in this song, but first I'd like to show you this one. Alright, very cool. Now, these risers don't really sound amazing on their own. They're meant to be combined with other techniques to build energy. Now what's really cool is you can kind of build a riser out of any sound. As long as you start with it quiet and then end up with it loud, it kind of effectively becomes a riser. So let me show you what we mean by that. So if we look at our guitar noises track here, right here, I'm going to solo a couple of these sounds. Now that's a pretty cool sound by itself, but you'll notice that it doesn't really sound like your typical riser. But again, when you combine it with the context of the mix, it does kind of sound like a bit of a riser because you are adding and creating more and more energy. And again, here's another sound that's not a typical riser sound, but when you start with it quiet and then end with it loud, you can still effectively build that energy. So let's hear what it sounds like by itself. Alright, that sounds pretty cool, but not very much like a riser, but let's combine it with a more typical riser sound and see what we get. Alright, definitely building the energy there for sure. And of course, that's what risers do, is they build energy that you can then pay off with a chorus or a drop or whatever you'd like. And now I have one final little guitar sound here that's normally just an arpeggio and not really used as a riser, but again, I start with the volume all the way down and then automate that to go up as the song plays. So let's hear that by itself. Alright, very cool. Now let's hear all these risers together in succession and see what that sounds like, and then we'll play it in the context of the mix. Alright, now let's hear that in the context of the mix. Alright, so as you can see, when these risers and these effects are in place, you can definitely build up that huge amount of energy, so when the chorus or the drop finally does come in, it hits that much harder. Alright, now let's take a look at that synthwave project again, and see what risers and downlifters we used here. So as usual, I use these at the beginning of the song, and during the pre-choruses or the drops, so that we can build energy and go right into a verse or a chorus. Now here you'll notice that I have a riser, followed by a downlifter. And that's so that we can build that energy, and then release it, only to build it up and release it again. And that's basically how you move energy through a song. So what I want to do is first play this with and without the riser and downlifter, and then we'll add those back in so you can hear them, and really how important they are. Alright, so pretty cool, but there is something that feels like it's missing, and that is, of course, these risers. So let's now try this with the risers and the downlifter, and see what kind of difference that makes. As you can hear, that build-up definitely makes the verse come in and hit a little bit harder, and then that downlifter definitely releases all that energy that we just built up with that riser. Alright, now we have a pop song pulled up, and as you can see, I still use the risers in pretty much the same places here, the intro and the drops. Now I don't have a downlifter on here, but I do have some pretty big crashes and splashes that are effectively the same thing. So first, let's hear this without the splashes and the crashes, and then we'll hear it with everything in the mix. Alright, now let's hear it with the riser, and really hear that energy build. So again, when you combine these risers and downlifters with other techniques like that filter automation, you can really see how you can build energy up, get the listener excited, so that when the next section comes in, it really does hit that much harder. Alright, and the next technique I want to talk about is transitions and fills. Now we have that same pop project pulled up here, and what I want to show you is this little fill here, which is going to be a nice little tom fill that you can see right here. Now before we play that, I do want to mention an important trick here, and that is cutting out the drums just a little bit before the next section. This is done for a few different reasons, one of those being to keep the listener interested, and to signal to the listener that another section is coming. And typically during this silence, you want to have some kind of transition sound, whether that's a drum fill or something simple like just a reverse snare. So let's hit play. Now you can have silence here sometimes if you'd like, but typically there is some type of transition sound. So if we mute this, let's hear what it sounds like without that little drum fill here. Not quite as good as with that little tom there. So let's hit play one more time. And now we have a trap project pulled up, but we're still going to use some of those same principles that we just spoke about. So during this section here, you can see that we do cut off the drums a little bit before the end of the next section, and we apply a riser, and we apply a drum fill. So if we mute those real quick and hear what it sounds like, you can hear that it will be just a little bit empty. So definitely a very cool tape stop effect there, but we need a little bit more. So now let's try with our riser and our drum fill as well. Now I did mark this riser, but that is pretty much just a reverse cymbal. So you can see now with that reverse cymbal and that drum fill, as well as cutting off the rest of the drums here, as you can see, that all works really well together to build up energy and then make that chorus come in that much harder. And now we have a synthwave project pulled up, again using these same principles. You can see that we did mute out the drums for this little section here, and we added a drum fill and another reverse sound. So we've got these muted right here, so let's hear what this sounds like without that. So kind of cool there, a nice little break at the end of the 4 bars there, but we need a little bit something more once again. So let's unmute our fill and our reverse sound and see what that sounds like. So again, not a big huge difference, but all of these little nuances and all of these little details definitely add up in the end. Okay, now we have a lo-fi project pulled up. Let's try to do some similar things here. So once again, we have our drums right here, cutting out a little bit right before the next section. And then we have some additional effects here to play during that space. So we have a downlifter here, otherwise known as a splash. And then I have an effects right here that kind of sounds like birds. So once again, let's mute these and see the difference without them. So you can see how much of a role they really do end up playing. And let's hit play. So again, pretty cool. Nice to have a little bit of silence in there for a little bit of a break, but I want to add something more. So now let's unmute these effects and hear what this sounds like with these transition sounds. All right, very cool. So once again, a pretty big, huge difference there, going from just being a little bit maybe on the boring side to something a little bit more exciting. Now, like we said, it is very common, and we've done it a bunch of times here in all these projects, to cut off the drums right before the beginning of the next section. Now, you don't always have to have a drum fill in that silence. You can actually add a bit more time and then throw some kind of one-shot in there, some kind of hit. And let me show you what I mean by that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute this hit and then play this so you can hear the difference. So very cool again, but doesn't have the impact that I want to make that next section hit that much harder. So now let's add this FX hit. And I typically do this a lot. I add an FX hit right before the chorus. along with some extra space with those drums cut out. So now let's hear this with this FX hit. So adding a pause and hit like that right before the chorus really will help make the chorus hit that much harder, even if you don't use a riser like we didn't do here. And now what I want to do is show you that same technique again, putting that pause and then that hit right before the chorus, except this time with a pop song. So once again, what we're going to do is mute all of these hits and play it without, and then play it with. So again, it does sound pretty cool, and adding silence is a very, very common technique to just cut everything out there, to give it a little space to breathe. But usually if I do that, I still want something taking up that space, whether that's a riser or a hit or something. But of course, that definitely depends on the genre. So now let's hear this once more with that hit already in there. So let's unmute the hit and hit play. All right, so there we go. Once again, that hit providing that extra energy right before the chorus comes in. And now I just want to take a quick minute to run through this effects pack that you can get completely free at MobileMusicPro.com/free. Now, many of the sounds that you heard in the projects today are coming from this effects pack. And if they're not, we have very, very similar sounds that could absolutely replace those sounds. Because as you can see, we pretty much have almost everything that you'd ever need, including ambient effects, downlifters, impacts, one-shots, reversed, risers, subdrops, and uplifters. So as you can see, we pretty much have every single sound that you would need to achieve all the different tips and techniques in today's video. Alright, and now it's time again for our final thoughts. And if you are still rocking with us, then we just can't thank you enough for being here, especially those that are here every single Wednesday and Friday to watch our live streams and our live premieres. Now, we really hope that this video has inspired you to start adding a bunch of extra ear candy to your tracks, because creating all those little details and nuances that listeners can latch onto creates a much more personalized experience for the listener and keeps them coming back for more. And really, let's be honest, this can be one of the most fun parts of the production process as well, because those extra little transitions and risers can really help to create that final polish of a song that can really take any decent sounding song to that next level. And of course, don't forget folks, we currently have a contest going on right now from March 2nd through March 22nd with over $500 of prizes that's on the line that's going to go home to 4 lucky winners. To enter this contest, simply submit an original production using as many sounds as you can from our new free Modern Metal sample pack. For further rules, details, and prizes, definitely make sure to check out our website at MobileMusicPro.com/contest. And finally, we've had a few different interviews lately over the past few months with some amazing podcasters, including 3 Beats Later, Jade Star, and a bunch more. So to check those out and get a few more insights into Mobile Music Pro, definitely check out our website at MobileMusicPro.com/interviews. And of course, we always have a ton more content coming your way, folks. Everything from contests to sample packs, giveaways, and much more. So if you do want to keep up with everything that we're doing over here at the channel, definitely sign up for our completely free newsletter at MobileMusicPro.com. And so, until next time, everybody, keep talking music. We'll see you later. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of Cubasis on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.